Howdy folks, Dr. Will Wong here. Let's talk about something that people don't usually want to talk about. Let's talk about enjoying the drive up to the inevitable. You know, we all have to croak sometime. There's no one who stays on this planet forever, despite what the transhumanists want to try to do. There will come a time when you just pass on. Happens to everyone, can't be avoided. But the time up to when you kick off is important. Are you going to drive there in a ratty old Fiat or a well-tuned Aston Martin? Are you going to get to the end point having spent years and years and years sick and in pain and depressed and unable to do stuff? Or are you going to get there relatively healthy and able and still enjoying life? Are you going to be a horrible-looking corpse that the undertaker really has to work hard to make look decent? Or are you going to be a great-looking corpse? The choice is up to you, but let me give you the background as to why I'm saying all this stuff. Got a letter from a friend in the UK, and he commented that a doctor who he's been following for years, a fellow he knows that I don't like because he's a red-rimmed asshole, but this doctor who's super assertive and super aggressive and he's never wrong and he's always right and whatever else. He commented as to how bad he looks in his current video, how he's pale, his skin is kind of sagging on his face, his eye is sort of kind of semi-closed on one side. He's confused for some of the things that he's saying and kind of stuttering. This is a guy, I'm sure, who thought he'd never die. Well, let's take a look at some of the famous doctors who have passed on, famous natural doctors. Let's start with Dr. Paavo Airola. Dr. Airola wrote 14 books. He was the most famous naturopath in the world right up until the mid-1980s when, in the middle of Dr. Burr's office, now you have to remember Dr. Burr was the world's #1 homeopathic physician. I worked in his office a couple of years. It was an honor to work in his office. But about a decade before I did, if I remember the story correctly, Dr. Airola was visiting Dr. Burr, and he had a stroke right there in the middle of the office. Massive, ischemic, dry stroke. So another naturopathic doctor who was a contemporary of mine and also taught at Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine had brain cancer and died in his mid-50s. Famous natural doctor I knew died of Addison's disease. Another of renal failure. Both of these gentlemen were in their 80s. Just found out that another famous naturopath, a student of mine from Southwest actually, Dr. David Geller, passed on of leukemia a year or two ago. He was only 70. And looking around, all of my mentors are dead. Most of my contemporaries are dead, and some of the natural and alternative docs from the generation after me have already gone. So, do we eat, live, and be merry? Do we let ourselves grow potbellies? Do we let ourselves just let go and just throw caution to the wind because death is going to find us anyway? Might be a reasonable philosophy given that the adherence to natural health principles doesn't guarantee you're going to live a long life. And no matter how correct you think your principles are, there might be a few things wrong with it. There might be something that you missed. Dr. Airola's blood was too thick, obviously, as was the blood of my late friend Dr. Patricia Bragg. She had a massive stroke, after which you really didn't see pictures of her from the front anymore, and she stopped writing and calling her cousins and me. And yet she lived the Bragg principles and followed the example her dad taught her. So, What's up? Well, this is a really good place to talk about the anal retentive super purists, the people who count every calorie, who eat watercress sandwiches for lunch, who avoid absolutely everything that might be toxic in their food, in the garments that they wear. They wash their clothes before they put them on when they first buy them. They're constantly getting on people's nerves about how they're vegetarian or they're vegan, or you shouldn't eat this or you shouldn't eat that, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. And not only are these people annoying as shit to be around, but their average life expectancy is only 56. That's the average life expectancy of a vegetarian worldwide. The vegans die earlier than that, by the way, on average. Now let's look at the things that we really need to pay attention to fight off the planned obsolescence in life and not be so thoroughly sick for the last 30, 40 years before we finally kick off that we're so miserable that we're happy that we die. First thing, preserve your brain, preserve your muscles, because loss of muscle mass threatens survival. So to do that, meat, especially red meat, eggs, and dairy. We need to fight the sarcopenia, the muscle wasting that happens in our bodies post 50. Now, we also, as I talk about in my lecture, need to fight the inflammation that is growing in our bodies, usually past 27, definitely past 35, that goes into all of our organs and causes fibrosis. The fibrosis shrinks the internal organ and diminishes its function, just like we see that difference between a younger organ and an older organ in autopsy rooms and anatomy classes in med school. We need to fight the vasoconstriction that happens, that closes off our blood vessels and reduces the oxygen supply. Now, part of that is inflammation. Some of it, minor part of it, is the old boogeyman of arterial plaque, but it's mostly because after 40, we make a ton of PDE5, the little enzyme that kills nitric oxide, and the lack of nitric oxide squeezes our blood vessels shut, or almost shut. We need to fight the lack of oxygenation, of oxygen getting to our tissues. We need to maintain our SaO2, our blood levels of oxygen, above 95. We need to maintain or put back the sexual hormones, which are the hormones of strength, happiness, and youth, so that we don't go into sarcopenia, so that we don't go into internal organ shrinkage, so that we don't go into brain shrinkage. Testosterone-dominant brains are larger than estrogen-dominant brains. Progesterone is essential for the maintenance of the brain. We need to do all these things in order to have as healthy a life as we possibly can before the end comes. Now, the goal in natural health since the days of Bernard McFadden has been to live to 120. That was McFadden's goal. He taught that to Paul Bragg. Paul Bragg taught that to everyone else. That's been everyone's goal. Okay, folks, go online. If you've never seen a centenarian, if you've never seen someone who's 100 and over, go online and take a look at the centenarians. Who the wants to be like that? Most centenarians have very little cognizant brain function left. Their reptilian brain is still working to keep their heart pumping, to keep their lungs breathing, but there ain't much activity happening in the conscious portions of the brain. Yes, there are exceptions, just like there are 70-year-old marathoners when most marathoners die off in their 50s. But on average, the majority of centenarians are not functional human beings. Most need to be fed, most need to have their backsides wiped, just like when they were infants. Folks, do you really want to go there? The foolish will think, well, if I do my nutrition right, and if I exercise right, and if I take my hormones, and if I do this and I do that, I won't get there. Yes, you will. You'll get there. Something will happen. Something will break down in your body. Something will fail that will cause a cascade that will bring about your decline and death, just like taking care of an old car. And I've got 3 of them. A 73, a 76, and a 90. We take care of our cars. We're meticulous about keeping them up. But eventually, something's going to break, something's going to stop, and they're going to die. Chiropractors call that the limitations of matter. Eventually, matter isn't going to matter. It's going to break down. So what do? You don't behave the way the anal retentive super purists do and avoid everything in the world that could possibly be bad for you. You know, this Christmas, I taught my youngest son how to smoke a pipe. I generally save pipe smoking for around the holidays, but taught him how to smoke a pipe, got him a really nice one. His mom got him some really nice tobacco, and he learned about the relaxation and the brain stimulation from the nicotine of pipe smoking. Folks who keep themselves on super restrictive diets, if you're ever around those folks, they're absolutely freaking miserable. And they're miserable to be around, and they're miserable to everyone around them. Ease the up. Go have your cherry cheesecake, your tiramisu. Have a nice warm brandy before you fall asleep at night. When you've got a cold and a lung infection, warm up some whiskey with honey and cut through all that mucus in your lungs. Don't be anal about eating. Don't be anal about what you do or how meticulous you have to be in following a health routine. Enjoy your life instead of making yourself and everyone around you miserable. I've known doctors who were so uptight, their assholes squeaked when they walk because they were so meticulous about everything they ate and everything they did. Their wives actually divorced them. So ease up on yourself. Ease up on everyone else. Enjoy life. Go make love more. Do what you need to do to stay healthy, but also do what you need to do to make life enjoyable and maybe even fun. Because come somewhere around your 80s or 90s, it's all going to be over, and you're going to be on the other side talking to God. Be rational about your health program, and don't be irrational thinking that you can escape the processes of nature. On that note, I wish you all God's blessings. Be well, and I'll chat with you again next time. Bye-bye.